But I heard that on the podcast that Gabe had sent to us prior to this, and MDV was just wearing some of his what'd you call them? What kind of glasses are those?
These?
Yeah, what do you call them? You said
These,
it was like a name.
these are just sunglasses.
No, I know, but you said like Tim Dillon. No, who's like
Oh, Tim Dillon hosts a podcast where he solo podcasts every single time, and he wears sunglasses every single episode, a different pair of designer sunglasses. And
okay.
I think there's a couple of reasons. One, I think it's because it makes him stand out as a personality. But two, I think he's and when you're just solo podcasting to the camera, it's probably easier for him to not have to worry about where his eyes are going the entire time. He can look around. It's very interesting. It's an interesting look.
Yeah, I had a guy this morning. He wore Tim Dillon or whatever that guy, he wore Ray-Bans the entire workout.
Oh,
And so finally at the end of the workout, I'm looking at him. I was like, bro, are those the ones with the camera in it? He's like, yeah. And so he had filmed the entire workout, and he said he was going to send me over some clips. But I was wondering why he was wearing sunglasses the whole time. It was so odd. And it's because of that. So that's why. Now I got some good footage. We'll see how it looks.
Have you, before we get into the sports gambling stuff, have you worn one of those? Does it display anything on the actual sunglass?
No, it's just the camera along at the edge.
It's just the camera.
You could barely see the camera. I mean, it's pretty unique. These guys this morning were super fascinating to me before we get into the sports betting. These guys really inspired me this morning. So I had this Russian, a guy from Russia come out a couple of weeks ago. He's a jiu-jitsu guy.
An asset? There's a Russian asset at the Train Hard Men's Club?
Oh, bro.
Uh-oh.
This is trouble.
I think maybe MDV's glitched
The
out.
whole it's the Russian asset. The Russian asset kicked him out.
The internet heard us talking about the Russian asset. It just shut MDV off.
That's it. Axed.
But I think he might not have enough data on his computer or something. But anyways.
No, he's back. That's it.
What happened?
Fastest bounce back of all
I
time.
think it might be a data thing on your computer. But we'll see.
I said Russian asset, and they
kicked
kicked
you off
FBI was listening. They
immediately.
kicked me off, bro.
That's it.
We're going full conspiracy theory this episode. We have to. Oh, maybe
We
next
have to.
episode. Maybe next episode. This is the sports gambling episode.
Just keep teasing it out. Keep
Yeah.
teasing it out.
We
It's
have
the
to-
next
we have
episode
to
where we'll
at
get
some
super
point
crazy.
talk about
Or
that.
the next one that Jason misses. When Jason misses,
could
the
be on it. I wanna know
the
Jason's
tinfoil
thoughts
hat
on
comes
it.
out.
I'm not. Something's going on with my thing. It's not working.
Yeah. So, anyways, these guys, they show up, right, a couple weeks ago, and one of them is a grappler, and then he invites 4 of his friends, and they show up today. So there's 5 of them total, and they show up, and I walk up to them. I was like, "Hey guys, like, what's up?" And they're like, "Dude, we're here to train." And these guys were 18, 19, and 20 years old. And dude, it was so awesome to have these guys out there because it brought a little bit of a different energy, but also just the fact that the rest of us are like in our, 35 to 50, and here these young guys are getting ready to get after it. It was super cool to see them out there. Like, these guys are on summer break. Some of them go to Berkeley, some of them go to different colleges. Instead of being out partying, they're waking up 6 a.m. to come train with us. So maybe the youth is making a pivot, man. That's what I'm thinking.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. And it speaks to one of the things that we talked about. We had a really good episode yesterday, I thought, with the CEO
Frank?
of F3. I thought that was an awesome episode. Yeah, with Frank. I think that's kind of like that mentorship, right? Like, they went because they were brought and encouraged by an older gentleman. I think that's kind of like one of the things that we should and can, like, the purpose we can serve, because they probably wouldn't have gone on their own, but they went and were that much better for it. So that's cool, man. It's cool that they went.
Yeah, no, they were encouraged by just a friend of theirs. And so all these guys, they're all from different countries, and they're exchange students, and they come out here, and dude, these guys threw down. So it was interesting, though. The reason why I thought of them is because we were talking about those Ray-Bans, and so this guy used them the entire time. But these dudes threw down. It was great. Good morning of Men's Club, and now we're on to sports betting. So what exposure do you have to sports betting?
I know a couple friends that do it. I've never even entertained the idea because I'm like the most risk averse person ever. But that being said, man, I mean, I was listening to this podcast and I pulled up a couple of the stats just for anyone that hasn't. Sagar from Breaking Point, who I really enjoy. I enjoy that podcast. I enjoy content that he puts out. He's been like a big champion of this for a while. He's had like a long monologue on it. And essentially, something that used to be very limited to in-person Vegas, like if you were betting on sports, it's kind of seen as a vice and something that like, was if anything like a little hush hush and whatever. And now you fast forward to today and it's legal in 40 states. You can do it, from your phone. The like age limitations of it is a little bit blurry because of how easy and accessible it is. It's highly addictive. You had they said 14 billion in legal. So this is all legal too, in legal sports betting revenue last year, which exceeds the total box office earnings for the entire movie industry. So people are spending more on sports betting than the entire movie industry, to kind of give you like a grasp of how common this is. And then the scary thing is that like only 3% of gamblers account for 50% of the revenue, because these companies very much depend on people that are addicted to it. Like, it is an addiction. It is terrible for those 3%. Because the other thing they brought up on the podcast, and this is very common in all sorts of kind of gambling, is the house never loses. Like, if you're good at betting, like if you're actually someone that like, for whatever reason, like, what you're betting for, you like, you play the advantages and you're actually doing well, they reserve the right to ban you from the platform. They're just like, you're not going to play. You're not going to be able to make large bets. So it's not like this 3% of gamblers that are making, 50% of that revenue are out there like even breaking even. Like, there are people that are losing a lot of money. And, tying this back into, because what I wanted to tie this into as kind of the greater conversation I think we can talk about is one of the 5 pillars of Train Hard is to cut the crutch, right? It's to like figure out and identify whatever the thing is, because we all have the thing. For me, it's my phone. I'm very addicted to my phone. I know that it doesn't make me a better husband. It doesn't make me a better dad. It consumes a lot of my energy. It's like readily accessible dopamine. It is not a good thing. And I've been very vocal on podcasts that I'm trying to work on it. We all have our thing. And I think that identifying it and working towards solving that is important. But the problem with sports betting, and I was fascinated by all the stats, is that all these laws are being passed and these companies are spending immense amount of money to make it more accessible, to make it easier to get addicted.
Of course they should.
And
yeah, of course they will.
Of course
Right?
they will, but at the cost of what?
No, I'm just saying, like, of course, from a business
Oh,
perspective.
sure.
Like, I
For
mean,
sure.
in that podcast, they brought it up. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, betting was only legal like in Nevada. I could be wrong. And obviously, there was Indian casinos, of course, right?
But
Indian
but it
casino.
had to be in person. The friction of I have
That's what
to
it was.
go, show up, and like pay, and then like you're in this area where like, okay, everyone there is doing that. The fact that now you can do it, and what I was thinking about this morning as we were prepping for this too, that's like the level of how pervasive this is and how I think honestly dangerous it could be in the short term. The app that we used for our fantasy football league, where kids were playing, right? Like Caden had a team.
Oh, did
Other
that
kids had a
convert into a
team.
paid platform?
Dude, it's 100. Like, if you go back on the app, they do a great job hosting fantasy football, not for money, to get you into the app. And if you're in there, what they're constantly pushing is sports betting. So think about that for a second, right? Like, completely innocent. Like, you're thinking about it now. Like, you had no intention of like having Caden inside of a sports betting platform. And Caden loves sports. Like, it's such a slippery slope that I think is becoming that much more of like another temptation for something that ultimately, like we can all agree, is a net negative. Now, of course, like with everything else, can some people throw a couple dollars on a couple Sunday games and it just kind of makes the experience a little bit better and they're like super responsible about it? Of course. But that's the vast, vast minority of the people that are really struggling with this issue. And the other thing they brought up on the podcast, and then I'm curious to start getting your guys' thoughts, the lawsuit that this lady is filing against DraftKings that's actually still in pursuance.
For like millions of dollars because her husband was like, that one you're talking about?
Yes, because they're not supposed to do this. So DraftKings and all that, like they're not supposed to, because if you think about it with any other addiction, right? Like say you have someone that's like a recovering alcoholic. They know that that's something that they're addicted to, that it's obviously very detrimental. Imagine if like a Anheuser-Busch could call them every day, could send him free beers to his house, could like show up and be like imagine if they could do that. like we would all sit here and be like, that's ridiculous. Like you shouldn't be able to do that. It's going to ruin that man's life. These betting companies can set up these VIP treatments where once they identify that someone bets a lot and is contributing a lot of money, they send them all sorts of gifts. They're getting on the phone all the time. They're like constantly encouraging them. They're like, what else you got? Like they're even once red flags that are in their rules of regulations, like this guy started betting, I think it was 440% of his annual income, because you have to report those things when you set up your profile. That's supposed to be a red flag where they are supposed to stop. Like that's, again, a bartender at the end of the night that like cuts you off because clearly sees where they're going. The fact that they're going above and beyond those things is, I think, clearly wrong and a very slippery slope that's going to lead a lot of people into some really hairy situations.
I mean, dude, all it is though is like it's just access. That's really what it comes down to. This whole thing is just access. It's that everything is becoming easier to gain access. You could have the same conversation about like porn is a great example of this, dude. Back in the day, right? If you wanted to, you know, check out some porn or something, you'd go buy a Playboy and you'd go buy a magazine, or maybe you'd find like an old school what's the
Sears
The
catalog.
friction you have to get, or
Old school
literally
Sears
like
catalog.
maybe not
even-
Sears. You'd have to get like a
Victoria's Secret catalog gets
Oh,
delivered to the house.
VHS,
kidding.
right?
Do you
VHS.
remember?
I remember,
remember the-
specifically. Well, go ahead.
I think it's exactly what you're going to say. Like when you would go to like not Blockbuster, but like the
Yes,
mom and pop
yes.
video
Beads.
rental
Mom and
spaces,
pop,
the
and there
beads
was
in
a
the back.
black
That's right.
screen.
Yep.
Dude, there was a black curtain, and you'd go
Yes.
past it. I remember when I was a young kid, I'd go into like, you're right. It wasn't like Blockbuster. It was like, you know, the mom and pop, like
Yeah, the mom and
local
pop
video
video
store.
rental places.
yeah, like Movies R Us or whatever it is, right? You'd walk in, and I remember mom would be over there, and I just like open up the back curtain, and there'd always be some creepy dude in there just like by himself or whatever. But that's a good example, right? So you know, there was a friction point, right? You'd had to go to the movie, you had to go to the store, you had to do this, you had to do that. Nowadays, it's so easy. And yeah, there you go.
There you
Perfect
go.
example. Liz just pulled up.
I remember it being beads, like the stringy beads. I vividly remember it. The
I don't know
video
what you
store
guys
that
were
we
doing
would
in
go
New
to.
York, but out here in California, we had curtains. But, you know, but back to the gambling thing, dude, it's a really good example where parents need to be aware of this. And individuals need to be aware of just like with the access comes responsibility. Like, dude, everybody is going to be a grown up and they need to treat it as such. But with easier access, it just requires more attention and focus to have conversations with your kids about these things and how they could be really detrimental, dude. Like Caden and I, we were in Vegas for his first time, and he wanted to put a bet on a baseball team. And he's like, hey, Dad, I really want like this game. I think they're going to win. I was like, all right, dude, look, we're going to make one bet one time for $10. And we lost. It was perfect. It was great. We lost. I was like, Caden, that's what he's like, wait, what do you mean? I was like, your team lost. We lost money. We're never betting again. He's like, yeah, that wasn't fun. I was like, yeah, that's perfect. So I think just trying to instill these habits, like, dude, gambling isn't like all fun and no downside. There's a downside to it and this. But when you're behind your computer, it's so easy just to get wrapped up that I think as a parent, we need to do a better job of making sure we educate our youth on the slippery slope there is, just the same thing there would be in these other addictions, you know?
Yeah, gambling is interesting because you get the itch and the drive to try to win it back. You try like
That's the
It-
problem.
And they play on that.
yeah, for sure. And your losses end up becoming something that you start to chase. It's called martingaling your losses. You start to try to bet more to win back more because you lost more, and then you end up losing more. It's a really vicious cycle in any form of gambling. And what happens a lot of times in gambling, at least in my experience, I've seen this happen with some other people, is that you win big like one time. If you win big one time and then you have this idea that you can do it always, that you, no matter how many losses that you take L's all the time. All I need is this one hit that's going to get me right back on top. It's a lot like probably drug addicts chasing the next biggest high. Once you start leveling up, you start betting more money, betting more parlays, whatever. You've got more skin in the game. And then you're just chasing the next big hit. And a lot of times it doesn't come. Most of the time it doesn't come.
Yeah, but think about it, dude. You don't need cash. You have it on your phone. I think that's the part that becomes really. Gabe, did you confirm? Did California make it legal?
I'm not sure. I would
Okay.
assume so.
I think sports betting is legal in California. I think.
I think it might have gotten legal like a year or two ago. I could be wrong, but you could look it up. You can figure it out. Let's see what our good old friends over at AI say.
You know what was really messed up about this whole situation? And this is the hypocrisy of it all. That ESPN, I guess I am specifically calling out ESPN. ESPN for the longest time,
Not legal?
not legal in California. ESPN for the longest time was so anti-gambling. So anti-gambling because they weren't allowed to participate in it. And then once they were allowed to participate in it, all of a sudden, ESPN Bet comes out. And then all of the shows, not even just the shows that are dedicated to gambling. There's dedicated gambling shows now.
You mean like World Series of Poker type of shows?
No. Like
No.
Like betting lines, shows about betting lines, specific personalities that are hired to talk about sports gambling only, people who are experts who have picks. Not only do they have specialized content for it now, but every single other show talks about betting in some way, shape, or form almost every single time it airs. Like if you're watching Sports Center or something, or if you're watching one of the talk shows, they'll talk about the betting lines. They'll have ads for ESPN Bet. You know, Stephen A. Smith and all these guys have their own like set picks and stuff like this. And it's really like, I think it's the biggest hypocrisy in the sports gambling is the fact that ESPN, because they couldn't do it for so long, was very anti. They might have even campaigned against it. And now they want to be the number one player because it's money.
There's so much money.
It's a winning business for anybody who's the house. Anybody who's the house in a gambling situation always wins. Always wins.
There's no competition because DraftKings and like these big companies, you need licensure to be able to do this. So there's a lot of lobbying that goes in, and once you get really big, it's not like us three can just be like, hey, we're going to start an online betting business and like you can just go disrupt the market. It's impossible to do that. And then like I was saying before, they reserve the right. Like if you're actually good and can beat the house, they'll just say like, hey, Jason, like you're not allowed on DraftKings anymore, or we'll limit your bet to a buck a game and you can't hurt them. And then on the flip side,
they do that in blackjack at table games too.
Yeah.
They stand advantage players up with zero knowledge that the person is counting cards or anything. If they see somebody winning at a percentage that's higher than they are comfortable with, and they start magnifying their bets, even with money that's not extreme, they stand the person up and just say, you're not welcome to play here anymore. It's a very interesting. They know obviously
it's
that
so wild.
Yeah,
and
no
and
downside loss.
And now with AI, like these algorithms can just instantly recognize like, oh, this person's too good. You just ban them. So they're essentially like everyone that's betting a bunch of money is by definition. I mean, I don't know this just based off the fact that like, they're not going to let people that are winning a lot bet on the platforms. Like these people are losing money. Like that's really all that's happening.
It would be really interesting to see like the single number net win, net loss number, the money gained in this scenario for these big people.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the way the house has always won, right? And, people need to be wise enough to adjust accordingly. I think the difference here is that the friction points are gone. You don't have to go to a specific location. You don't have to use cash. You don't have to use these different things. Like, you don't need to, hit your max on your ATM. Like, there's so many friction points that have been reduced that make it so easy for people to make these bets. But I also would say that, like, dude, if people were really into betting, they were going to find a way to do it anyways.
Jason, this has been going on from the beginning of human history, bro.
Exactly.
But
it's just, we've just reduced their friction points. Like, I remember way back in the day, dude, back at my first job, people would do undercover, low key bets and like bookie, like old school bookie type stuff.
But that's what makes what you just said completely not true. Like those are two conflicting statements. Like people that are going to bet are just going to find a way to bet. And hey, now the accessibility makes it so easy for more people to bet. Like I agree with the second part of that statement. Like the guy in the lawsuit had never placed a bet, never gambled a day in his life until 2019,
Yeah.
where this stuff became legal and became accessible. So, I mean, yes, people that have been betting all their lives, now maybe it's a little bit easier, maybe they're losing more, but many people that maybe never would have, because they never would have had, the I don't know, whatever you want to call it, balls to like actually go and do it in a casino in person, might dabble now and get hooked. And I think that that's the issue.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, this then now we get to personal license and freedom of choice, right?
Sure.
Because
Sure.
like drugs, alcohol, and like how much do you want? Because who then becomes the regulating and restricting body? The government, right? The government is the person who has to step in and say, hey, we have to put regulations on this. It's not fair. People are, our people are suffering at X percentage higher than we're comfortable with. And then you start to, now, what else do they regulate and not allow you to choose? I see it a little bit differently. I think people who really want to seek this stuff out are always going to seek out a way to go and do it. They're always find an opportunity for anything that you really want to do. You can go and find an opportunity to do it. Is it easier right now because it's legal and it's on your phone? And so, yeah, of course it's easier. But if you wanted to place some massive sports bets in any time in human history or any time ever, there's a way to do it. There's a way to gamble away everything right now if we wanted to do it.
But here's an example. I was in Minnesota and I was at like a convenience store and they're having THC drinks and stuff there. It was very odd. Like they had like a more variety of like weed related products when I was in Minnesota at this particular like a gas station. And I think that what I learned from that was like, as I'm in there, I don't particularly like gravitate towards those type of drinks, but it's just like right there in front of you. It just makes it so much more convenient. So at some point though, I get what you're saying, MDV. It's like, yeah, you have freedom. Like as a guy, like what are you going to do? You're going to go sport bet? But man, I'm taking this and I'm thinking, how does this relate for the youth in the future? Because more things are getting easier and easier to get access to. And I think we need to make sure that we're educating our kids about it because, dude, it's just, there's a big difference between having to go to walking into a convenience store and getting something like this versus having to go find some local dealer on the street like back in the day. I'm just using maybe weed's not the best example. It could be a good example, but the sports betting is a great one, dude. You can just pull out your phone and boom, versus having to go to a location. So what do we need to talk to our kids about,
I mean, I was listening to a really interesting listening to a really interesting podcast this morning about how, and I started listening to it, so I don't completely know kind of like everything that they were talking about, but essentially everything is kind of shown that like, legalizing a lot of these things, which was, really promised to like solve all problems. A lot of the states and cities that have done this have kind of gone to shit for many different reasons that maybe weren't as expected. Marijuana specifically, that was kind of the big one they were talking about, but there's other places that have legalized a lot else.
Well, I mean, the entire states have done it, and like the states are right. I mean, I'd have to hear the podcast, right?
They were mentioning that like it's destroyed Denver, and so the specific podcast was talking about Maine, and they were talking about Maine being completely taken over by Chinese mafia grow houses. The reason being, yeah, and it's a crazy podcast. And the reason being that when these things got decriminalized, everyone was promised that like, hey, if this stuff is legal, we're eliminating like the shady dealers, the crime, so on and so forth.
Yeah, shrinking the black market, growing the white market.
But what actually ended up happening is now it's so low risk for there to be illegal operations that don't need to pay taxes, aren't regulated on like the herbicides and fungicides that they can use. They can actually send it outside of state lines since it's still not federally legal. So this has happened in California too. Rogan had a fascinating podcast about a games warden who started realizing that there are these crazy, Mexican cartel grow operations in California once it became legal. Again, just because now even if they get caught, it's like a slap in the wrist, $2,000 bail, and they're back out. Whereas it used to be a big deal. It used to be that, cops and DEA would go out and try and make weed busts because it's illegal. Now that it isn't, all these foreign, like illegal activity has started because it's so profitable to undercut people that are doing weed growing, for example, legally by doing it completely illegally and selling it across state lines and doing so on and so forth. The main Chinese mafia thing is insane. This one journalist did like a whole report on it. because they started doing this digging into like all these like old schools, old like nursing homes started getting bought up by foreigners. And then there was all this electrical work being done. So it raised some red flags. And the journalists did this investigation. They would kind of like go, and every single neighbor had the same story. It was like an Asian couple would come, move in to whatever this house or like thing was. They would like come over to the neighbor's house with like a bottle of wine or cognac and say like, hey, we're moving away from Boston and New York because of the pandemic, like, you know, being really nice neighbors. Then they would like never see that couple again. And it would just be like shady people going into these properties, U-Haul vans in like the middle of the night, the clear smell of weed. And it's in large part, I haven't finished the podcast, like destroyed the state of Maine and brought so much crime. And essentially the argument that they're making, and I know there's a lot of nuance to this, is that like
there's a lot of nuance. These are very
like,
nuanced topics. All
what has triggered this, or one of the reasons that has triggered it, was legalizing marijuana, which again was pitched as this like, obviously this is good. Like now it's going to grow a white market. There's more tax revenues. We're going to have the best schools, so on and so forth. But in practice, there's been a lot of cases now of like that very much not being the case. And obviously there's, you know,
it's
lot
almost an impossible
kind of
topic to
unpack here.
cover, in
Yeah.
especially in a 45-minute podcast, and especially from our positions of not knowing the ins and outs of all
It's
this.
like saying
and
it
the exact
ruined
facts.
Maine. I mean,
No,
I've
but
been
like
to Maine.
even thinking about like the war on drugs, if you go back to like, you know, the 80s into the 90s, and like the war on drugs is most people believe was an abject failure, right? The criminalization of drug smuggling, drug use, inner city crackdown. Like most people look at that as an abject failure. It didn't work. And then now we're saying that, well, the legalization has negative effects. I just think that these topics are so incredibly nuanced and tough to talk about. Like, is there really one way to do this that has no downside? There's probably not. It's
interesting though about Maine though, Gabe. Like when I've been out there multiple times, I've never heard of this once. And so, but I mean, I'm not to say it's not possible. Of course, you know, it's just interesting that like you'd think the locals would bring this kind of stuff up, but I've never heard of it. So now I'm kind of intrigued on it, right? Like,
yeah,
let's get back to these vices. Like, let's get back to talking about the sports gambling is really interesting to me because it's such like it's something that can destroy your entire life in like 1 minute. Like literally one wager, one interaction on these sites can destroy your entire life. You can take everything that you've earned, your entire, like this guy, everything can go so quickly. The amount of the swing that can happen in gambling is so crazy. And obviously you can do that with drugs, you can overdose, you do it with alcohol, but like with gambling, it's such a crazy addiction that takes over people's ruins everything. It really ruins everything in the person's life.
Because this is a lawsuit and so all this stuff has come up in discovery, his average deposits went from $2,000 a month in 2020 to $64,700 a month in 2023.
Crazy.
His frequency of bets went from 1,600 bets to 14,000. A month. Oh, annual bets. Sorry, 1,600 annual bets to 14,000.
Wow.
And again, it's just one case.
Job.
It's just one case. It's just one person. I understand that, but I think he brings to life because I mean I agree with you, MDV. Like I'm very big on personal responsibility. I think the buck ends with you in many, many ways. But with that being said, there's got to be a line drawn in the sand where the reason this is a lawsuit and the reason people are following it closely is because there are regulations already in place, not even saying like add anything stricter, that these companies are just like, you know, trying to get around. And clearly they're there for a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're like, call up the guy once he's already betting 400 times his annual salary, which he disclosed to you, and encourage him to do this.
Well, it's like vaping, right? Like, you had those companies that got in trouble for essentially marketing to kids, they said, right? Like, obviously their position.
This has been going on with the big tobacco, alcohol.
Oh, yeah. All I'm saying is
all
like,
this stuff
they
has
made the
happened
claim like, hey, we
before.
just came out with different flavors, right? And then the lawsuit's like, dude, you're marketing to kids. And then obviously some regulations came in of some type, right? And this gambling, sports betting is all newer. So I imagine the next couple of years, you're going to see some regulation go against it. There's going to have to be something.
It seems to be all the same playbook, right? The same playbook is you have this thing that you want to sell that's really, really fucking addicting. Whatever it is, whether it's cigarettes or it's alcohol or it's gambling or it's weed or whatever. You have this porn, women, whatever. You have this thing that's really addicting that you know you can sell to nearly anybody who has a pulse. And then what happens is they start to try to sell it to everybody, including kids. It happens every time. It happened with cigarettes. It happened with alcohol. It happens with porn. It happens with vaping. It happens with all this stuff, man. They try to get absolutely everybody addicted.
Opioids.
Everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Money's a motherfucker, man. This is all greed. It's all greed. What is the other motive besides greed?
No, that's it. That's it.
Well,
for sure.
but their position on it would be, dude, we're providing a service to a client that's interested in having it, right? Like
100%. And then you sit in front of Congress and you say, we didn't know that nicotine was addictive.
Yeah.
And then you lie about it to Congress. And then you have to pay.
And then you pay Congress.
It's built
and then
into
you're
their
fine.
business model. It's built into the business model.
For sure.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like it's taking self-responsibility, and like what's in my control is first off being aware of these things and then having the control not to avoid them, right? Especially if you know you're like an addictive personality in specific types of things. If you know that's the way you're going to be, maybe you shouldn't be exploring these things because it can go down a vicious cycle, right? If you already know that's the type of person you are. And then also with the kids, man, it's just sharing all of this stuff constantly, letting them know that these things are out there and that they're a major, like you said, MDV. I mean, they could it doesn't start off as one bet, but in the future, these bets can turn into like life-changing events for you. And
it doesn't even matter how you start, how small you start, or whether or not you think you're going to get addicted or not. It really doesn't. I was at the coffee shop the other day, and this guy was sharing a story about this kid. So his daughter was working at an ice cream stand that he has down here at the beach. I'm not going to use any of the real names or anything like this. One day, a guy comes up to the stand, orders an ice cream, starts hitting on his daughter. Turns out that this kid is heavily addicted to fentanyl and has been clean for a couple of weeks. And daughter had never done drugs before. They start hanging out. He tells her that, hey, this is not that bad. You know, you can just do a little bit. She gets addicted to fentanyl. And then all the rest of the things that you think is going to happen happens. Everything else happens. Kid ends up overdosing and dying here in a parking lot somewhere in Southern California, which was obviously tragic. But it doesn't even matter if you've never touched the stuff before. All it takes is one single interaction with some of these things, right? And I think one of the things that, like, you know, I play poker. I love the game. I try to play it from a cerebral level. I try to really think about playing it well. I try to hold back and play with like financial responsibility as being part of what's going on. But even in that realm, if I have a losing session, I'm like, man, how can I get back on the felt? And how can I make some of that money back? Because I feel really bad about it.
Yeah.
And then like without like a strong sense of purpose or a strong compass or somebody there to anchor you and say, hey, listen, maybe you don't have to go and spend your time that way. Or maybe like this is a better idea to not, you know, push yourself to the limit. It becomes really easy to go and then dull your feelings with something like booze or porn or alcohol or gambling, whatever. It's really just like a numbing mechanism a lot of times. And then you're addicted to the highs and the lows of it.
Well, dude, that's one of the... Go ahead, Gabe. Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't want to misquote this, and I haven't listened to the TED Talk, but it was popularized in a TED Talk. But the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety; it's connection or community. I forgot what it was, and I think that to me, I remember when I was listening to a podcast that brought that quote up. It makes a lot of sense and really ties back to everything. Like one of the things that you said that you hit the nail on the head, MDV, which is like, if you have someone there or a community that's kind of keeping you in check or just giving you like a reason, like not to have to go back and chase whatever feeling or emotion you got from name the vice, because you can get it at home from a supportive spouse, or, at home from a family member, or, the group that you're going to see and do a workout with on Saturday morning with Jason, or whoever. If that's there and those relationships are meaningful, then you almost don't have that void, or that void isn't as deep, so that like the itch that you need to scratch isn't as like completely,
Like overtaking.
unavoidable. Yeah,
Yeah.
for whatever it is, because that's what
I
it is
think
for
gives you
everyone.
I think it gives you an opportunity. It gives you an
Mhm.
opportunity not to do it, right? You can look at, you can go, oh man, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should talk to this person instead, or maybe I should step away or whatever. But there's still so many people out there who, whether they're showing up to the men's club, or whether or not they're working out, or whether or not you see them on the street and you give them a high five or whatever, and then they're functioning addicts. That's another whole weird side to this thing, is that there's so many people who suffer from addiction who you would never, ever think are suffering from whatever addiction they're suffering from. These things have such a strong pull on your, it's almost like a pull on your primal, most kind of deepest, whether it's fears or yearnings, or like the thing that you want to satisfy the most. It's like you choose that over everything sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like what defines an addiction, because I think that we would all sit here and like, the big ones, porn, gambling, we're talking about it, alcoholism, drugs, like those are obvious. But in the podcast I was listening to, like, I'll be the first one to raise my hand, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a functioning addict to
phone?
my phone.
Yeah.
Being a workaholic, being a people pleaser, like these are addictions. Like that's exactly what they are. You're addicted to, the dopamine that you get when people are like, man, like that compliment, and you can't stray away from that in any way, shape, or form. Or, the little ego hit you get when you're quote unquote doing work all the time, but at the expense of your family. Like those are ones that aren't as maybe easily recognized, but they're very much, at least I would consider, an addiction. And there's a lot of people that are, functional addicts in those realms, me being one of them. Like I can't put my phone down, man. Like
Well, you
I
gotta
can't, man. I
media,
try.
Do you have the time limit? So like we put up the post yesterday on my channel had a ton of people request information about our training programs. And I try and respond to all of them, but dude, at some point I was talking to Ashley about it. It's just it's gotten where, dude, I'm all consumed. I'm not scrolling at all. Zero. I'm only responding. And even just responding, I'm talking hours. And it's something that I'm trying to really like evaluate and put some time limits on, because dude, like you said, it could be so addicting. Like the feedback back and forth, and then you get this dopamine up, and then boom, a bound. And I think that one of the things I think the men's club has helped with is just having conversations about stuff like this, because a lot of people don't have conversations like on a podcast or whatever. And it just gives you a platform to have conversations with other guys about things like this. Like this morning, it was a Friday morning, so we had a smaller group, maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 guys tops. But you just start opening up the door for conversations like this. And I think that just even opening your mind to this idea that you have this vision of like what an addict looks like, and you're like, dude, that I would never be that person. But then all of a sudden you look at some of your habits, you're like, fuck, man, maybe there are some things. I mean, some would argue that I have an addictive personality to fitness, and I would probably agree with them. And I'm okay with that, right? Because I'm able to lean into that to make me better in other areas. But I think like the phone and the things you brought up, Gabe, are really important for all of us to reflect on, because you know what else is, I mean, obviously
Fitness can be a devastating addiction.
dude. Yeah. 100%.
Fitness can be a devastating addiction. Nearly
You think
anything
so?
can. Yeah. Oh, for sure, dude. People ruin their entire lives for fitness, in the name of quote unquote fitness. And I'm not talking about. Listen, if you like to work out, you like to go to the
It's a
gym
good topic.
every single day. You like to spend a lot of time in the gym. I'm not really talking about that. I'm not talking about that level. There's levels to this, right? You're talking about body dysmorphia, eating disorders, spending countless hours toiling away in fitness, choosing fitness over choosing important moments or choosing relationships, or when it becomes so disruptive that it impacts your own life in a negative way, and the people around you in a negative way. And who am I to say, like, I'm not trying to judge you and your life and your choices, but like, if the people around you are telling you, hey, listen, you got to take a fucking break. Like, you have to step back from this stuff. No, you don't need to go work out again today. No, hey, it's our daughter's birthday today. You don't need to go do this. Like, I think that those are the moments that you can take and like, you can go, what is this? Am I in control? Am I in control of this, or is it in control of me? And I think that those are the points of reflection that you have to have with all of this stuff, with eating, with fitness, with drugs, with alcohol, with porn, with whatever thing that's controlling your life, that's not your own rational thoughts and emotionally controlled decision making, whatever it is, because it can all ruin you. Jay, you could work out so much that your family could walk away. I'm not saying this to you directly, but like somebody could work out so much that their family goes, I don't want this. This is not what I signed up for. And then does that ruin your life? Fuck yeah, it ruins your life probably, right? So there are like, obviously there's a ton of nuance to this. And there's also like the idea that, hey, maybe there's definitely people in relationships out there where, you know, fitness is a really high priority. You guys have relationships with your wives and your families that fitness is a really big deal about. Fitness is a huge part of my life. But I don't think that just because it's healthy for us or healthy for a lot of people, it doesn't mean that it can't hurt people, right? There are definitely addictions to good things that can hurt people.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah. No, I think that's a really. I'm glad you brought that up, MDV. I mean, I would say that there's probably been times in my life that I probably fell into that realm, but I think that one, I justified it to myself and to everybody else around me because I was competing in the games for money and all these other things. So I think at that point, you kind of, it goes out the window a little bit for a while because you made this commitment to go do this thing that requires a ton of time. But I think that even then, you got to put yourself in check because if it starts to cause friction, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went from individual competing to team, is I was causing too much friction in my relationship and it just wasn't worth it, right? Like I was spending too much time training instead of being present. And so it was like, dude, you had to have a hard conversation, be like, hey, I just can't keep doing this. And it's like, all right, well, not gonna, you know what I mean? Like that, it was that.
CrossFit
boom,
and fitness have done probably exponentially more good than they've done,
of course,
bad, right? I mean, if we're looking at just the apples to apples, you would say that. What's up? Net.
No, net.
I think
CrossFit's
fitness
done
is
more for. I mean, dude, it's done so much for the fitness space.
Exactly. It's done so much for us and our careers and our lives and like our friendships, and we've worked together for 10 years now. But I also think we have to recognize that there are downsides to this stuff, right? And in particular, the area that we came up in, the CrossFit space, I do think that there were elements of it that were not healthy. I think that there was the idea that you needed to work out nearly every day at max intensity is not a healthy idea. I think the idea that you had to, and this is a more back in the day idea, 2, 3, 4, 5 workouts a day to get like your quote unquote fitness in. I don't think that was a healthy idea. I don't think that there was a healthy idea about like how to introduce some movements about like too much, too soon, too fast. I think that in the charter of CrossFit, they talk about mechanics, consistency, intensity, but everybody seems to forget that that's the sequence. Everybody rushes generally right towards the most intense, the most kind of complicated things. And I don't think that that was very good either. That's not necessarily a function of the methodology being bad, but the application of the methodology. A lot of this stuff is in the application. How are you applying this thing that's good to your life and the people around you?
Do you think it's fair to say, MDV, that generally speaking, CrossFit attracted people that are just more on this like all or nothing addictive personality perspective?
Of course.
Fuck yes, dude. And early on, especially so.
Yeah.
Early on, when CrossFit first hit the scene, it was a cult through and through, for sure. How could it not be defined as a cult? Man, it was like you were part of this club, and Jay, you can
went
attest
all
to this
in.
too.
The outfits,
you were all in.
The food,
t-shirts,
the terminology,
everything, dude.
Well, you were the
Everything.
antithesis of the
Soup to
conventional
nuts.
gym, right? And you wore that on your sleeve, right? You were saying, "Hey,
Our workout is your warm up.
yeah, our workout is your warm up." Like,
Pukey.
yeah, and it was just it was a culture, right? It was a culture.
You like
and that
cheap crack.
culture- What's that?
Remember the "Smoke You Like Cheap Crack" T-shirt?
Yeah, man. I was telling the guys today, my first CrossFit competition I think I ever did, the name of it was 3 girls in one day. That was the competition. And it was 3 like benchmark girl workout. It was like
Oh,
Karen.
dude. The names of CrossFit competitions.
Never, that would
CrossFit
never fly
teams,
these days.
always.
Never fly.
Talk about like the early days of CrossFit. That the name of that being a competition is like, yeah, perfect.
It was
Spot on.
perfect.
three girls one day, and it finished off with Karen. And I'll never forget. I did 150 wall balls just nonstop to win it, and that's the way it all started, though, man. And I think that, like you said, MDV, I think there was a lot of good that came from it. But we were
So
having a
much
conversation
good.
this morning because we were talking about High Rocks, and I guess Dallas already sold out, Gabe, right?
Oh, dude, they sold out. So the coach that I'm working with has early access. So I had access through him before the public was open. And when I went on, the pro individual men was already sold out. So I decided not to end up doing it. But yeah, and then the like whole all the categories were sold out pretty quickly, I think within a couple hours. And mind you, when we did it last year, they only did Saturday, Sunday. They added a third day. So it sold
They added
out.
Friday?
Yeah, they're doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it sold out that quick.
Bro, exponential.
Can we talk about the dude who kept competing
Oh,
while his
yes.
girlfriend passed out?
Yes.
It made
I
the
didn't
New,
watch
Liz, pull it up. Pull it
it
up,
made the
Liz.
New York Post. The dude at the High Rocks competition allegedly continued to
It's on
compete
video.
while his
I think- no, I
girlfriend
think
was
some of
getting
this stuff-
medically attended to while passed out on the floor.
Yeah,
I
how
might
much
not
of
have
this
all my
stuff is
facts
fake,
straight.
though?
What's
How
up?
much of the internet you think is fake these days?
The Epstein files are apparently all fake. Are we going to get into that? No, not this episode. Nothing to see here. There's
Jason's
no list
face.
to see here. I'm trying to get this conversation in at some point.
If you're not on video, you have to go to the video and just watch
this is-
Jason's face whenever we bring up the Epstein files.
Well, I think it would be
locked
different if
in.
we sat down. We said, "Hey, we're going to do a deep dive into these Epstein files. Go learn as much as you can about it, and then come back."
There's
to the table."
there's nothing
no,
to
it's
learn.
the-
There's
no,
nothing to learn.
100%.
Him and Ghislaine Maxwell
the-
were the only 2 people involved in this. There's no victims. There's no other people who are going to be incarcerated or charged. It was actually just, Jeffrey Epstein slept with multiple thousands of underage people, and that was it. That's the whole thing. That's the whole kit and caboodle. Jeffrey Epstein did it all, and then during his incarceration, he hung himself. That's it.
It's
That's
so
all. That's
crazy.
nothing to see here. And
the
the video
that they showed.
Holy- Did you guys see the video that they released of his cell? So
I saw an
This-
AI version that has Hillary Clinton walking in. It was pretty funny.
listen, I'm not like a super political person, but this is it's so atrociously
I don't think it's political.
dishonest.
It's
This is so
apolitical, man.
atrociously
It's both
dishonest and
sides
such
now.
a shell game. The video that they released of the cells. So you guys are seeing all these images of these 2 cells, right? The green doors of those cells. You haven't seen yet?
No.
So they released 10 hours worth of footage from this camera. There's only one functioning camera in this whole facility. And it shows these 2 green doors, these 2 big green doors. Neither one of those doors is his cell. His cell is located downstairs in a grainy, half able to see video where a sliver of the staircase to his cell block is able to be seen. So the stuff that they're putting out, this is what really got me last night when somebody told me this, because I was like, wait, I watched some of the video. I'm an educated person. I'm somebody who's like, okay, cool. You're going to show me something. I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to see, okay, cool. This is the video. The context that they put this out is so dishonest. It's so dishonest. These 2 cells have nothing to do with where he was held. And overall, I'm sorry, I got to rant for a second. Overall, in the span of child abuse, child pornography, human trafficking, blah, 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 this is not like, it's such a major problem beyond this. This is such a small scale piece of the pie. I get it. That's the realization that I had. This is a small scale piece of the pie. But the thing that makes it so terrible is the fact that it's so highly talked about and so many names are implicated and so many people out there who are very prominent all of a sudden are very interested in this. And now it's just going away. And that for me is the greatest tragedy of it all, is the fact that like they're just moving it to the side and pretending that we're so stupid that nobody is going to say anything. We're just so stupid that nothing exists. These two people did it all on their own. There's no evidence of any video. What? It's so blatantly obvious now that you're just being lied to by everybody. And I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist, but I believe in a couple, for sure, and this is going to be
you got to believe in the ones that have been proved right.
This is going to be one of them until I'm proven wrong on it. Until something comes out and proven wrong. The video is so dishonest. It's so dishonest.
Sagar on that podcast I sent you had a really good point. Like, it's not that they think that you're stupid. It's not for us. It's not for the public. They know the public knows. Like, they're not trying to lie to you. No one's convinced by that. They're just sending a smoke signal that, like, hey, like, we're not. Like, we're playing ball. That's all it is. It's for whoever would be implicated in this to just know that, like, dude, it's all good. Like, we will lie this blatantly to, protect whoever, because no one expects you to believe any of that stuff. I thought that was a good take, because to your point, like, no one that can rub two brain cells together thinks that, like, this is
It's
truth,
offensive though at this point. That's what it's offensive. Yeah, I find it personally offensive. And then like the video of did you see the press conference that they held where it's Trump, Pam Bondi, and Marco Rubio? Yeah. And somebody asked the question about like, hey, what about the Epstein files? And Trump interrupts Pam Bondi and starts going, are we still talking about this?
Yes.
We were talking about it yesterday. We're talking about it yesterday. It's not like a years have passed. That to me was like the most blatant, like, okay, a switch has been flipped and now we're just continuing to move on. Anyway, the rant over.
And it will continue to move on. And that's the thing.
It's just crazy to me.
Got your rant in.
It's the most newsworthy
I don't get wrapped up in any of this kind of stuff, man. It doesn't interest me that much because it's just frustrating. It's frustrating because it's frustrating just across the board, right? It's on all sides of the thing. And so
wherever you stand on this though, like I think looking at this from just a citizen of the United States point of view and saying that nearly everybody was talking about this, and some people were talking about it in order to gain, whether it was political clout or votes or whatever, and to utilize it to your advantage to say that this stuff existed and we have it and we're going to give it to you and there's going to be accountability and transparency, then to go back on all of that and say, no, we never said any of that. None of it ever existed. There's no list. There's no videos. There's nobody else involved. It's just so personally offensive. It's like somebody telling you something to your face nonstop, and then a few months later going, I never said any of that. And that's the part for me that's really hard to stomach.
It's wild, man. It's super wild.
Pretty wild.
It's the politics.
Oh, I'm glad we got that in. I didn't think we were going to.
We snuck it in at the end of the episode where nobody's listening anymore.
I do think that, like, tying it back to what Jason said and what we started the podcast with, there's just so much noise and distractions out there that I think that at the end of the day, man, like, if you don't have something to center you with, like, whether that's your family, whether that's, whatever it is, your community, like the really close group of friends you have, whatever that is, there's just so much stuff to just like take you off the path, man, and so much time to be wasted, and so much like emotion to waste.
To be perfectly honest with you guys, like Epstein's kind of part of that, right? Like
for sure, 100%.
If you guys are going down these rabbit holes, and I'm raising my hand and say I'm sure I've been down a few rabbit holes, but I try not to, man. Like that's why I don't watch the news. I try and high level, but dude, it doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't make me a better man, a better husband, a better father. So I try and avoid these things that are distracting me from my core purpose, which is showing up for everybody here. And that's why, like, when conversations like this come up, it's cool. Like, we'll have it, but I don't really engage on it much because I'm trying to stay focused on all the things that are within my circle that I already have so many things I got to work on. Like, I have so many things I'm trying to work on for myself within my family. I have zero brain bandwidth to even think about Epstein. You know what I mean? So like, that's just my perspective on it,
Yeah. I have a little bit of a different take on this particular topic because it was so heavily it was such a talking point. It was
Sure.
so heavily utilized. And then to just pretend that, oh, we're not talking about
But
that
like,
anymore.
playing devil's advocate a little bit, let's just say this guy got voted in because he said he was going to show you these things, blah, 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 right? And now you're like, okay, so now what, right? Okay, we're frustrated about this. This is bullshit.
Now you can't trust anything. That's
Well,
the problem.
Well, you couldn't trust anything
You
before.
can't
Right, but you couldn't trust
anything.
anything before. The point I'm trying to make is like all of these things bundled down to me is like what is in my control. It's like I'm gonna let them do this, right? And I'm gonna focus on me because the more I try and have anything else that distracts me from like this, it just takes me away. Like, and this is something. The reason why I'm bringing this up on this podcast because this is something that I'm personally working on right now. Like I do not have mental bandwidth to take on anything other. You know what I mean? That's my take.
We're also shooting the shit here with the guys on a podcast where we get
For
into a lot
sure.
of different topics. So
For
like,
sure. I mean, this stuff is
I'm not
really
out there screaming from the hilltops about this.
Sure.
but This is fresh on my mind for sure.
like I think back on the man, Nick, I'm blanking on his last name.
Who?
Komalatzos?
No.
What was the
You
situation?
filmed some content with him.
Bear?
It's gonna kill me. No. Was it not Nick? The guy who's in the state Congress.
I don't know. Who you're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about.
Are you blanking on his name too? I can literally see his
What does
face.
he
He's
look
gonna
like?
kill me.
Wait,
He's
why
the
are
one
we?
who he always does the videos with the mugs, and he like
Freitas.
Nick Freitas. Okay,
Nick Freitas.
There you go. So Nick Freitas had, I think, a great point about this, and it's where I fall on this, Jay, which is like, what they always say is like, like don't talk about politics and religion, but it's kind of like we live in a time where it's really important to talk about politics and religion, and I do agree with that. I agree with your sentiment of like there are things that matter and things that don't matter, and you should ignore the things that don't matter. But I think that like these things that in the past have kind of been like third rail subjects, and the reason that they're important is because they're so tied into like the values that I want to raise my family with and the values that like I want to make sure that I'm on the same page with Ariel with, and how we react to things like this stuff. Again, it's not that I'm spending hours and hours like going down these deep rabbit holes or like spending time doing it, but like how I feel about it, how I react to it, and where we fall as a family is incredibly important. I think it's like one of the biggest things that like leads us towards how we're going to raise kids, the decisions we're going to take about raising kids, and all of that. And that's where I think I agree, you shouldn't ignore the important things and the distractions. And some of this stuff can, like anything else we've been talking to, can be a slippery slope to becoming a distraction. But I think being aware of it and having an opinion on it and having values that make you decide how you feel about one thing one way or the other is very important. Just being like hey, hands off, I don't talk about it, I don't look about it, I don't think about it, is kind of a miss on something that is incredibly important to like lead where you're going to go and lead your family where it's going to go.
I agree that like always talking about politics or religion and making it, or whatever topic is a hot button topic for you, is exhausting. It's exhausting. Nobody wants to hear about it all the time. Nobody wants to have this conversation everywhere they go. I don't necessarily think that it should be like how you, determine whether or not you're going to talk to somebody if they have a different point of view than you or whatever. I think discourse is extremely important. I think people should be able to talk, have conversations. You should be able to disagree. You should be able to have some spirited discussions, I would say. But I don't think that name calling, I don't think that like telling somebody they're a fucking idiot or whatever, I don't think that that kind of stuff is productive at all. The reason this is such a big deal for me personally is because it really highlights a major flaw. Like it's a big hypocrisy element for me. There's so much hypocrisy wrapped up in this particular thing that just any sort of trust that I had on either side of the equation really is completely gone based on this moment. And that's really important to me in terms of being a citizen of the United States of America and existing in this two-party system, where it just feels like they're out just for themselves. That's the sentiment that I get from based off of this.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, well, gentlemen, I got to go train because I have a jiu-jitsu tournament coming up, and
I saw that you signed up for Master Worlds.
I did.
You going gi or no gi?
It's this one's gi. So
This is gi only.
put my money where my mouth is. Signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament, Master Worlds. This is the biggest competition for masters of the year. It's a pretty big deal. And gotta get ready for it.
Jason,
That's
somebody's
it.
going to dedicate 1 year to only training jujitsu. 1 year. You put them into a gi program or a no gi program. 1 year.
I think to start, I think the gi is a good place to start, and then you could transition to the no gi. Because I did a lot more gi to start, and now I do a lot of no gi, and my no gi feels really good because if you don't ever use a gi and you try and get into it, it's very difficult. But if you're in a
It's
gi and
easier
you
to
know how to use,
learn.
yeah, you know
Once
how
you
to
have
use
the gi
lapels.
foundation, you can learn the no gi stuff a little easier. It's hard to play the grip game and the gi game if you've never done it before, for
Bro,
sure.
if you've never worked spider guard and yeah, it's all crazy. But yeah, man, I got Master Worlds coming up. If you guys are going to be there, it'll be in end of August in Las Vegas, Nevada. CJI will also be out there that week. I don't know if I'm going to attend, but I'm definitely going to go to Master Worlds. So
Can we bet on it?
what's it?
Can we put a wager down on you?
I don't know if you
Are
can
we
bet
able to
on me,
bet on
but
your jujitsu?
I don't know. We should look it up.
You
But
probably can. There's a market for everything, right?
make sure you guys check out the podcast show notes for all the links to join our newsletter, to join the app, to, all the good things we have going on here at Train Hard. Appreciate all you guys. And Gabe, MDV, I hope you guys have a great day. Time to get after it.
Hell yeah.